Hello and welcome to the next lesson of MagicSpells for SneakyRP Series 201. This is 205? I want to say this is, let me check my notes. It's 205. In this series in this video, we're going to look at projectile spells. So as is tradition, we are going to find where we were, create a new file, try to keep single spells in single files, or at least like one item is one file, because if you make a mistake in one of them, then there's a good chance that it shuts down all of them. And it also makes it so that the longer the file is, the longer it'll take to reload your magic spells if you make an edit to it. So definitely just keep a lot of different files. That's why I have so many. Also copy. Yeah. Let's make an egg that blows up. That's fun. Not really all that practical for roleplay, but it's a fun thing to make. It's called eggburst. Eggburst. I'm gonna go back to right click. Throw an explosive egg. And that's supposed to be there. Eggburst. So we need a projectile. An explode spell. Again, we're staying with very fundamental stuff here, so we don't really need more comments than this. The moment things get complicated is when you can start actually explaining what you've been doing. Which is why we're going to go over commenting and naming schemes in the 401 series. Because once you start making actual long spell systems, and I'm talking I've made scripts of 3000 lines at this point, once you get that far in, it better be clear to anyone reading it what line of code does what. That's where you need to become very clear with your commenting. So we're looking at a projectile spell. There's multiple types of projectile spells. There's item projectile, which throws an item, kind of like just like that. Turn that into a projectile. That's an item projectile spell. There's particle projectile spells, which is just shoots out a particle effect. So for example, you shoot out like a line of fire, and when that contacts something, it'll cast a spell. I'm not a big fan of how these work normally. If this is actually what you want to do, then this is definitely the spell you need. However, since you're not really throwing out a projectile, it is quite limited in a lot of ways. You'll probably find if you actually start using it, but for this tutorial we're going to start with a normal projectile spell with just, as you can see, a list of normal Minecraft projectiles. So that's again copying the entire example here. Eggburst-projectile shall be the name of our spell. It doesn't even need a name, icon, blah blah blah. Our cast item will be a right click cast item. Item. Doesn't need a cooldown. Projectile type shall be an egg. Our velocity is 1, is fine. We don't need a max duration. We don't need a cost, we don't need strings. And the spell shall be eggburst-explode. Let's make it, just as in the example, cast both on spell and hit ground, because spell is for hitting entities and ground is for hitting ground. So let's do that too. just so that the spell can work in both cases. targeted.ExplodeSpell as the explode spell. First, explode. Let's copy the entire example as we do. Let's see, we don't need any of this. Let's do a slightly smaller explosion, no backfire chance. Prevent block damage, because I just fixed up my sandbox. But we are going to make a fire. Damage-multiplier 1. Prevent player damage false, it's fine. Add fire, simulate-tnt, sure. Was ignore cancelled. Whether cancelled explosion should be ignored. Let's just keep that default because I'm not 100% sure what it does. Doesn't need cost, doesn't need. There we go. Honestly, this should already be done. Cast, reload. Magic item. Eggburst-item. One of the egg bursts. And now if we right click this, it should throw out an egg, and when the egg hits the ground, it should blow up. Oh. Look at that. It's not. So we can debug some more. First problem. Projectile type was not an egg. Put it in thingies. See how it works. No. Give it a capital. See how that works. Huh. Huh. Well, as we do when things aren't going our way, we will consult an example. I strongly advise that you do the same. Like I keep saying, you're only as powerful as a scripter as the amount of examples that you can consult. Why it's important to know your way around the wiki and to keep good track of everything you scripted. Spell graveyard is where this example is. Entity pyroblast spell. Ah, it's just called projectile. There's a thing that you're going to run into more and more. Not everything on the wiki is correct. Some of it was made for MagicSpells 4.0. Some of it is just straight up wrong. There have been multiple instances where I've had to go into the source code of MagicSpells to figure out that the wiki was just wrong about something. Okay, now we're throwing an egg, but it's not blowing up. Maybe if I hit someone. No. Huh. Oh. Typo somewhere. I did not. Look at that good old pyroblast spell of mine again. Here I put brackets around it, so... Oh, I called the setting spells here. Apparently there's a lot of things wrong with the wiki entry for projectile spells. And that's why it's so important to build up examples, and that's why it's so important to copy in code from your old examples. Because little grammar mistakes in your scripting can just make the entire thing not work. And sometimes even the grammar that's listed on the wiki is not the grammar that you're actually supposed to follow. But this, however, should work. It doesn't. Let's add the brackets as well then. Let's go all the way. We're gonna do an exact duplicate. There we go. And that's why we keep referencing those old examples. Because making a new code from scratch can take like up to 2 hours. Because you're constantly trying to debug and figure out what's wrong. Whereas if you just copy in examples from your old code that you know works, then it's just gonna work. So definitely keep track of all your examples and keep referencing them. Never feel bad about not knowing something from the top of your head. You can see how much copy pasting I'm doing here. It's just so much faster. Thank you all for watching. This was so far the lesson on projectile spells. I hope to see you again.